Superbreak as a whole is a very interesting team comp because the damage for Superbreak is really either just do you break or not break the enemy. Dahlia's mechanic is that she allows you to get the Superbreak multiplier before breaking, right? But it kind of poses another question because when I tried her out in the early access, right? Technically, if you have Dalia, I think Superbreak is gonna be eating very, very good, especially the brand new boss. But if you are a Superbreak main and you want to skip Dalia, you know how like there are a lot of like vertical cost investments for like all those kind of like DPS teams, right? Like for example, when they released out High Silence for DOT to improve version 2 DOT from Kafka Black Swan, and then they released out Serija to boost up Finon, and then they released out Aran to boost up Casuaries. For a lot of these cases, if you don't get that +1 vertical cost investment at that specific patch, I think the difference is not going to be that big because you do have the shield environment. So maybe at most 2 cycle difference with or without it, right? 2 cycles. The difference between having and not having Dalia for this one particular MOC stage is the next MOC rotation, which is the one against a True Storm, right? It is not the, not True Storm, the Evil Firefly. It is not against Evil Firefly, but it is the other half, right? It is the other half of that stage. It's literally a difference of clearing in like within lesser than 3 cycles to like a 8 cycle dispatch. Yep. And I at first thought like I have like some massive fucking skill issue because like bro, 8 cycle because like in my original intention was that the patch following 3.7, which is Dalia, it is gonna be an environment in which they're gonna be catering towards break, right? Because they wanna show the break environment. They do this all the time, right? But if you're a break main, if you're a Superbreak main, but you choose to skip Dalia, there's one fundamental issue which will plague all Superbreak mains. Yo, Ryo, thank you so much for the give this up. Which is essentially like whether or not you can even deal damage on the enemy target before breaking them. And without Dalia, I'm sure you guys have seen like a lot of screenshots, right? Your Firefly did like 100 damage, 200 damage. Doesn't really matter if it's like E0, E2, E6, doesn't matter. As long as you cannot break the target, you literally just deal 0 damage for whatever Superbreak team is going to be, right? So, this particular MOC stage, it is not the evil Firefly. It is the other side where they still introduce the Toughness lock mechanic. And on top of the Toughness lock mechanic, do you know how enemies recover from weakness break? Is when they get their turn, right? Okay, maybe you can store it a little bit with Mace, Thanatoblum, Rebloom, right? You store it like 50% and then they come back. So it turns out that there is an enemy that can essentially just cause 100% action value at once. And when they get broken, they instantly don't get broken anymore. So, like, imagine if you're like a Superbreak main, right? And then let's just say this guy has like, I don't know, 120, 140, 150, whatever toughness bar is going to be. You just spend like, I don't know, 200 action value. Because I think we calculate HSR's team comparisons by how many action value it would take for you to deal damage, right? So let's just say you just spend 200 action value.
MrPokke can also fuck Genshin guy.
How old are you? Mizaki, thank you so much for the months. Okay, maybe 200 merit is a little bit. Okay, let's just say 100 action value, right? If you spend 100 action value to deal, theoretically speaking, let's just say 100 toughness bar damage. Now that you actually did 100 toughness bar damage, you can finally start dealing your super damage during the time that they are weakness broken. So imagine like in a scenario where the moment you break them, the enemy instantly just recovers. So for your next 100 action value, you are once again dealing 0 damage because the toughness bar is not broken. And I think this particular scenario, it's a very interesting concept to look at for like Superbreak, because even though technically the enemy is, or rather not the enemy, the patch is meant for Superbreak, right? If you don't get the Dalia, and you basically just deal no damage to the enemy before their arena's broken, with the rising cost of not HP inflation, but toughness bar inflation, right? Like, we already see toughness bar inflation for like the entirety of version 3, which is also part of the reason why Superbreak is so bad, because it takes 5 billion years to break them, right? And then before you break them, you do 0 damage. So like, if you go into this trend in like version 4, version 5, or whatever it's gonna be, I just don't see how this team can scale upwards, because enemies are just gonna get more and more difficult to Arena's Break. And if you do not have the tools to deal any damage before you get a Arena's Break, or God forbid, after the Arena's Break, the enemy just recovers immediately, the entire concept of this team just doesn't make sense. Dalia is essentially the fix to this, because you can then deal toughness bar damage before the arena's broken. But at the same point of time, you are also going to be competing with whatever archetype is going to be coming out in version 4. And it's definitely not going to be Superbreak as the main team, right? Because every single version, they have their flair. So 2 was Superbreak. 3 was Remembrance flagship, right? And version 4, I'm sure as fuck they're not going to be going back to Superbreak as their main flagship. It is going to be whatever version was going to be. Maybe Superbreak gets like 1 shield patch, right? 1 shield MOC, 1 shield APO, or whatever it's going to be for that one patch. Maybe they introduce like a brand new Superbreak DPS. And then once that shit is gone, it's like, it's kind of just very, very hard to expand this team upwards. So my TLDR for this is basically, if you're someone that already put for, let's just say, a couple of version 3 teams, right? Like you put for your Casterers, you put for your Final, you put for like your My Day, even DAHLIA, like Potential Women, like all these teams, if you already put for them and you're being like doing very well, I don't see any reason whatsoever to actually like reinvest back into Superbreak. The only exception would be like players who essentially skip the entire version 3, right? You skipped every single version 3 unit, right? You literally just skip everyone. You skip casters, you skip final, you skip everything. So you are basically saving the entire version, or maybe you quit HSR, right? EOS, HSR, you quit the game, and then you are thinking, okay, you know what? I'm gonna come back for version 4. For this group of people, which means you probably have a version 2 team at the ready, either gonna be Firefly or Aircon, whatever it's gonna be. That's where I think it's not too bad, right? Because you don't need to spend like 4, 5, 6 costs to start up a version 3 team right now. It's not worth it when you can just invest that 1 or 2 costs to make the Superbreak team better, at least for this patch with Dalia, and then maybe in the earlier days of version 4 before you pivot completely into the version 4 archetype. Other than that, I just think that fundamentally Superbreak as a team is like a... It feels more neglected than DOT at this point. And DOT was like memed on for like the entire time because DOT received no upgrades all the way until highest stats, right? But the thing is, DOT, they can technically still function not too poorly, especially when you want to consider that the way they deal damage is not really so restrictive compared to Superbreak. Because Superbreak is really just, do you break or you don't break, and then you just go fuck yourself, right? So maybe if DOT encounters a similar situation where they have like, I don't know, like immunity, right? If you play Epic 7, like maybe the enemies have immunity, or like they're completely immune to DOT. Okay, then that's when you're like, can you just go fight yourself, right? But that hasn't happened yet, so it kind of just depends. As of right now, I just think that like, if you're a Superbreak main, right? Oh man, the future is not looking very bright from what I'm seeing. But Dalia is a good unit. I think Dalia herself as a unit is very, very good. Because she essentially fixes one of the biggest flaws with Superbreak itself. But like the foundation issue with Superbreak is not really going away with Dalia. So that is pretty much my 2 cents. Alright, see you guys on the clip channel. Right? Okay. Yep, just a little bit of a early game analysis. I wanted to play more on like the early access server today, but unfortunately or fortunately, I do have the opportunity to play one of my favorite gacha game of all time again, which is why we are gonna be taking a look at that. So I don't think this is gonna be a very long stream. We're just gonna do up Daily Village. I want to go back to my free-to-play account a little bit just to see what's going on. Talk a little bit more about the data in the meantime. Then afterwards, Mr. Ad for like 2 hours. Then I'll see you guys tomorrow for account reviews. So I really want to try to to finish up the early access for Dalia by latest Monday, so EU doesn't have to die and KML in game, so that's gonna be that. All right. Okay, yo, chat, what's it? Wasn't the bread problem just mentioned also environment that can ruin duty? Okay, exactly right. Environment is sort of like everything HSR, but I feel like Superbreak's environment is like the most impacted. No other team comp is as influenced by the environment. So I think a good example is that, for example, right, let's just say like your Aircron, your Facial, or like even maybe to a certain extent, like even Yingli, right? All these older version 2 teams, the environment is not as restrictive. Like Aircron and Facial hasn't gotten shield for like a super long time. Alright, they have, it has always been like this version 3 patch, but they still can keep up more or less. And even more so, if they sprinkle a little bit of the Cypher, they can still keep up relatively well, especially Facial, the strongest DPS in the entire HSR, right? So, like, it really depends on the team of, like, what is their variance between, like, a shield environment and a non-shield environment. And I feel like Superbreak as a team, they have so many up and downs, but their highs are not super high, and I don't think they'll ever go back to the super high team ever again, because that was in version 2, and their downs are like really, really down, like super, super down bad. Dalia is definitely going to change this a lot, at least in 3.8, because, you know, it is meant to show for Dalia, but the moment 3.8 goes away, and they start pivoting into like the version 4 environments for the version 4 R-type, once the focus changes, I'm not sure how well is Superbreak going to keep up cost for cost. So that kind of pretty much it. Okay, yeah, if they disable crit DPS, it is very, very wide. It's like a very general, because we already have like DPS, like the debuffs, that makes you deal less crit damage, right? I think we have that for like Anomaly Arbitration, like Night 2 from Liger stage. So we do have like crit damage, but like people just don't give a fuck. And they just brute force anyways. Because the debuff is not like straight up like you do 0 damage. Whereas for like Superbreak is that you literally just straight up just do 0 damage, kind of. And Dalia would help you a lot in that regard. But it is like a temporary fix to just a fundamental problem of like how Superbreak itself plays. Because for Superbreak mains, the room to like change your team is so restricted, right? I would say that in version 4, right, if I want to see like the future of Superbreak, the 99% chance of getting a character replaced is probably going to be the DPS, right? I don't think Fury is going anywhere. I don't think Dalia is going anywhere, because one has actual toughness, one lets you deal Winner's Break damage before Winner's Breaking, right? And the sustain slot, I think just kind of whatever. Maybe they gave a Superbreak sustain. I'm not sure if they can do that. So like the DPS slot is the one that gets like super easily replaced. So we'll just kind of see whether the only 2 teams that could brute force that was Anexa and the Remembrance. Bro, that is literally 30% of the entire Amphoris cast era. What are you even saying? Bro, the Amphoris cast literally just has those few units. Other than that, it's just going to be DOT. That's almost like half entire cast. So I think it's flexible enough. It's literally just flexible enough. Okay, HMC is a good replacement if you don't have feel, right? Fuck no, nobody plays HMC anymore, so it kind of did. You have coomed your last coom, my man.